A strong winter storm is currently brewing, which can have some major impacts for a large portion of the country. Here we have the weather, the National Weather Service's active warnings, advisories, and watches map, and you can see this very large, I believe it's a winter storm watch across a huge portion of the country, spanning all the way from the Texan Panhandle, even the border of Mexico, all the way up to New York. I wouldn't be surprised to see that extend even further up into portions of the Northeast as well. So in this video, I'm going to be looking at what the setup is for this. I know there's been a lot of uncertainty regarding this for the past few days, so I've been kind of quiet on that. But I do believe that there's enough certainty to really make a forecast and look a little more into kind of the pattern that we're going to be seeing for this event. So what we're going to have to be doing here is looking at model data and kind of looking, basically comparing what we have to kind of combine and get a real story. First thing I want to do is look at the GFS ensemble. First thing I like to look at with events like this is how is the ensemble forecast panning out. This is 1 mile's ensemble, but it's nice to see how 30 different members are all working together here. So these are our main pressure lines, and we can see here, this is going to be our jet stream kind of. Main thing is we do have the shortwave going on out ahead of the flow. Again, remembering our main risk area being essentially this entire portion of the country. I wouldn't, as well as portions of the southeast as well. Don't leave those out. So we're looking at this, moving forward with time here. You can see this little shortwave kind of developing in the flow, basically combining with here, and we'll look into that in a second. And then a very strong, closely packed geopotential height contours here. So you can see here, again, very closely packed, meaning we're going to have some very strong winds in this area. Not surface winds, but overall in the atmosphere, and that's going to help lead to a lot of forcing and pretty good environment for any systems trying to form. Let's look at our mean wind now to kind of get a better picture here. Looking at a little more contours and all that. Again, you can see the shortwave joins the main flow with some stronger flow behind, and then you really get this increase in strength out here. You can look further with only the GFS model, which currently has this low sitting out there, kind of off the coast of California, which we do have going on actively. You can see our main troughing feature out here, kind of digging its way south as time goes on. And then we do have this Californian, I call it a Californian low. It's not really in California, but that's just what we'll call it for location purposes. Kind of this little cutoff low here, which does look to be eventually joining the main flow. As this happens, you're going to see a very strong strengthening of this system. Especially, first of all, you have the belt of flow here, kind of getting conjoined and increasing in strength. And then after that, the shortwave is going to bring some of our major impacts. You can see that flow really strengthens, especially due to a shortwave up here as well. So these two shortwaves basically merge together and lead to a lot of forcing. Vorticity is very strong here, which again, we'll get into the more surface-based stuff in just a moment. Lastly, let's look at the European model here. See how this looks at this. So the European's kind of been the more bullish outcome out of the two between the GFS, and even here, a very similar outcome, maybe even stronger, more meridional flow, meaning we have more north-south flow rather than more kind of southwest flow. So that is, again, yet another thing to look at there. Again, look at that strong flow. Wow, really peaks up there. Very impressive. And then again, vorticity very strong. So let's look at our surface product now. I want to see how our surface winds are going to be working. So throughout the week, we've had a lot of clipper systems coming through, which has been bringing a very large portion of cold air to, you really can't see that actually, really large portion of cold air to a lot of the country here. You can see that below freezing line being this kind of dashed white line here. That's your below freezing temperatures. And you can see this cold air is going to continue to intrude southward. Even portions of the Texan Panhandle being very cold here. Basically, you have very, very good conditions for heavy snow because it's called the Kucherus snow ratio, snow to liquid ratio. Basically, when it's colder, liquid produces more inches of snow. And that's going to be what we're seeing here. We have this very strong cold air intrusion. We're going to have moisture, especially from the Gulf. There's going to be plenty of moisture for any systems to be had. So as these upper level troughs kind of combine here, work together, we're going to start seeing snowfall. So let's look at our precipitation type to kind of get an idea of this. Even then, this could be beginning on Friday, right about 3 p.m. Even the first senses of precipitation should begin Friday morning over Texas. But the real heavy snow and mixed precipitation will be beginning basically Friday evening into the overnight hours. You can see here this system really strengthens here. And it's kind of this initial wave where you get, stronger portion of snow Stronger snow kind of in this Ozark area, Kentucky, Tennessee, with a large belt of freezing rain looking here likely across portions of the South. As time goes on here, you'll kind of see the second wave, which is going to be associated with this short wave that we've been talking about. Watch as this precipitation comes in and becomes even stronger. Similarly, we also get a surface low developing here due to that strong vorticity we looked at. So beforehand, with this region of precipitation here, we don't really have a surface low developing. We have a small closed low out here, but we don't really have a strong, what you'd expect to see. A low pressure, winds like this, your stronger belts of precipitation like this. We don't really have nearly that case in this system here. So we do have a little area of lower pressure, but it's not really a closed low as you would typically expect to see. But as the shortwave comes through, we will end up getting this cyclogenesis. You can see this is kind of an idea of where that would be. And then the surface product is more defined. If we look down here in the southeast and see those southerly winds kind of with that general circulation in this region here, producing that low. That is what we're going to be looking at. And this is going to produce a lot of snow, obviously, because again, even here you can see it gets a lot stronger with the closed contour. You have a cold front associated with it, especially a backside as well, and precipitation occurring basically to the north and kind of the northwest quadrants or areas of that low, as we would expect to see. You also see this low forming out here past the Appalachians, kind of taking on a nor'easter style look, leading to a lot of heavy snow up here in regions of the northeast. So this is a kind of a strange setup, and I really want to look at the snow totals. That's going to be one of the biggest impacts of this event, and also with time is going to be an important detail here. So again, remembering our snow starts kind of Friday morning here, so I see some snippets going on in western Oklahoma and slowly working eastward, and especially as that stronger flow begins overnight, you do get a lot of this heavier snow. We'll even look at 6-hour totals here, so you can kind of watch as this goes on with time. This is going to be Saturday morning, and some of the heavier snow being over Arkansas. And we do have a pretty stark rain snow line, but do not be fooled. There is plenty of mixed precipitation between the rain area and between the snow area. In particular, freezing rain is going to be of importance to this event. As you can see, the GFS forecast is pretty abysmal here. The European model does not have a forecast for that. Even the NAM has some early signs of that freezing rain potential there. I think the 12Z is coming in right now. I don't think we'll have enough time to see it go out to the full hours, but either way, the NAM is also showing this very similar freezing rain event going on. I would be especially wary if you are in regions of the Appalachians, somewhere in here especially. Maybe that freezing rain along the mountains with topographic lifting. Back to the GFS, let's look at our snow totals with time here. And again, as that first wave moves through, you have kind of that, it's fairly heavy snow, but you don't see that heavier snow until the second shortwave comes through. You do see some of the snow moving forward, but especially up here in the northeast, you get that very strong snow totals. So again, let me get through the time frame of this. This here is going to be Saturday morning here. You have snow falling kind of in regions of the Ozark Plateau, Oklahoma, and Kansas. Throughout the day, this will slowly shift eastward, moving over to Kentucky and Tennessee. This is Sunday night, kind of 6 p.m. going into nighttime hours. The snow will kind of sit over Virginia for a little while as well, as it tracks northward. But in the meantime, we have this shortwave developing in the flow, joining the main flow, which is going to increase forcing. Then we'll watch as this snow really strengthens in intensity, especially for that Oklahoma region in particular, but really a large portion of the country, with the general area being under that area of interest here. With products in time, there actually was not nearly as northward an extent for this system, so this has increased in its kind of aerial distribution, and then finally the nor'easter style look for this is going to be quite strong overall. So with that, you can see right here that nor'easter style look, heavy snow going on there. And then finally, again, freezing rain going on overall. Even the European model with total snows, this is only the snow total, so you have to kind of work with me here. Some of these snows up here are going to not be associated with our main system we're looking at here. This model also has a strong portion of snow going on in Kansas, out ahead of the main system, which is something to keep in mind. Again, here is our beginnings of that first system. It moves eastward into Virginia, then you have that second system beginning to form over Oklahoma and moving its way to the northeast. So here's that system moving through. And again, strong snow being especially prevalent up here. Some of this is due to lake effect, but overall the northeast gets a lot more snow as well. Here's our precipitation as well, so you can just kind of watch this system with time. Again, first system through here, and then that main second system. Actually, these ones don't have as much of a distinct property on the European model, which is something to know. GFS did have kind of two main bands, but this one here by the European model, this is the GFS here with those, the first main band in front of, and then the second band behind. The European model does have a similar outlook, but they're much closer in spatial area, and then we have the heavier precipitation up here. So when looking at snow totals, it's going to be a little bit tricky because these two have been changing. You would check the GFS versus the Euro. You have a much the GFS has a basically smaller totals in a smaller northward extent of the storm. So let's look at our basically with time how these products have changed. Here's our GFS model taken for this hour, basically at the end of the event with time here. You can see it slowly shifted northward at the time. This had a much, fairly far south, almost to the Louisiana border there. But over time, this moved kind of further north, more towards kind of middle of Arkansas with the main rain snow line. This will give me more confidence in the European model's way of showing this event with heavier snow falling over regions kind of Columbus there, kind of central Illinois with that main cutoff. That's a little tricky with the way the precipitation might work. I wouldn't say there's not potential for snow in these areas, but I don't think the winds are going to allow that, because most winds are going to be basically northeast winds as this rolls through. Here's the freezing rain with time for those interested in that. This could also have, honestly, some bigger impacts in these regions. And heavy freezing rain seems very likely with this system, just with the strength of it. If we look at our warm nose, let's check our 850 millibar temperatures. Yeah, out ahead of this, there's gonna be a lot of warm temperatures, kind of different from where the surface, is. That's gonna lead to a lot of freezing rain. If you remember, when the temperature kind of had this warm nose here, any precipitation falling through the atmosphere. So you imagine up here we have snow. This is going to turn into rain, and then it's going to freeze as ice, which is the big problem. When you have that warm nose at 850 millibars, you have this low-level low-level heat, low-level temperature, low-level warmth that is going to aid in freezing rain. Again, we saw that on this product here with time. This is also slowly taking a northward shift. But regions in Georgia and Alabama, Mississippi, really anywhere in this belt should be definitely interested in paying attention to that freezing rain possibility. Because even anything down here, this is I believe this is San Antonio here, that 0.08, even that can have an impact. A tenth of an inch of freezing rain is plenty to make the roads very slick. So travel conditions are going to be very bad over this entire area. So that'll be something to keep in mind overall. So let's look, lastly, I want to look at the European model's change in time with its total snow. Again, just do take a small grain of salt with your totals going on in this region up here in New York, because there is a very volatile lake effect snow environment over Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Basically all of the Great Lakes, you can see that effect. So let's check this product with time. Move back here. Overall, the European model has been fairly consistent. We haven't seen a large shift, which could tell me some more confidence is in play for the Euro. And also, I do know we have interest in kind of this area here. We might have some lake effect into Indiana as well, because I do know some people do watch from that area of the country. And we'll roll through this one more time. You can see some stronger snow, kind of trying to figure out where it wants to go over here. Maybe not as intense as some of the earlier runs, but overall we do have a fairly similar pattern. Unfortunately, with the College of DuPage page, you do not get freezing rain. So we can't look at the European model for more consensus with the GFS. We can kind of imagine where we'll be at. We don't have precipitation type either, which is upsetting, but the environment should be very similar. We do have that warm nose out ahead. Even here, yeah, you can see that strong area of warmer air in lower levels, kind of the 850 millibar region. and that will aid in freezing rain, basically over a very similar region as we saw with the GFS run. If the European model does pan out, we will have a more northward extent for this storm. That could be regions of Illinois, basically all of Missouri as well. Comparing, oh, well, I will say the GFS does have all of Missouri at this point, but you can see a little more northward extent. This is the GFS look at it. This is the European model look at it. Let me actually adjust this so it's at the same time frame here real quick. Load that comparison one more time. Here's the end of the GFS. Here is the end of the European model here. Yeah, you can see a much more northward extent with the European model storm. Honestly, also just a larger spatial distribution. So there is still some uncertainty if you're in any of these areas. I think freezing rain is fairly, you can kind of get to know your precipitation type as time goes on. The real question becomes, I guess, once you're in this region where you're very close to, that rain snow line, that is where you're going to have the most uncertainty, and that's where you'll continue to monitor what's going on. But either way, you will have winter storm impacts. The southward extent of the freezing rain is going to be difficult to look at. It's always tricky with freezing rain, and that can change very quickly just based on the slightest little fluctuations in the atmosphere. But definitely near the Appalachian Mountains, you're going to be paying attention for freezing rain. That's something that's been popping up quite a bit. Even the NAM, again, the NAM had that freezing rain going on into regions of the Appalachians, even very northward extent, like the entire state of Kentucky here seeing freezing rain. Tennessee and Kentucky basically covered in it. So yeah, it could be worrying in that, in really all regards here. This is going to be a very impactful winter storm. So do keep eyes on official sources such as the National Weather Service. And yeah, so that's basically it. If you want more confidence, again, check Weather Service has plenty of descriptions. If you're in regions with winter storm warnings, they'll have some more information. You can see right here, here's your heaviest impacts if you live in this region. It's pretty easy just to find information if you need it. If you live in Ohio, I don't think they have anything. Oh, they might here winter storm key warnings, Arkansas, winter storm planning timeline. So yeah, basically everywhere they do have this good information. Even then, we have other winter storm impacts with very cold air intrusion in the north, up here in the Dakotas, Minnesota, even portions of Illinois. So overall, this is going to be very tricky to forecast, but yeah, just do keep eyes on official sources. And as time goes on, if you are more north, I would pay more attention to this, because I do think this snow is going to slowly continue to creep northward with time. That's just what the European model has been showing for a while, and it seems pretty consistent. The GFS has just been slowly kind of resolving towards that. So, but again, this could change. This is meteorology, and things change very quickly with the atmosphere. We are missing balloon observations in a pretty broad portion out here, which could definitely affect basically how sound our observations are, how quality those are, and how well our models move forward with them, just because we do not have balloon soundings out here as of, I think, 2025. So yeah, that's your messages for today. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Again, National Weather Service is a very good page for what you need. But that's all I have for this video. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time.